Hey, JD here. Welcome to the Mead House. You know, over the past several years, we've brought you over 150 episodes of mead making education, information, and entertainment. More than 100 guests have stopped by the Mead House, professional mead makers, medal-winning home mead makers, competition organizers, experts on yeast and honey, and brewers just like you and me have all visited to share their knowledge. Hey, the Mead House is produced for home mead makers and brewers looking for a bit of inspiration and information from the many guests and discussions we have here at the house. You can help support the Mead House by joining the Mead House Keyholder Club on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com and search for the Mead House. There's also a link in the show notes. For as little as $2 a month, you can become a keyholder. We've teamed up with some great companies to provide thank you gifts for your support. So get on over to Patreon, join the Mead House Keyholder Club, and get your own set of keys to the Mead House. You can listen to the Mead House podcast with your favorite player, and be sure to rate us 5 stars on iTunes or your favorite listening venue. The Mead House, mead making entertainment you just don't want to miss. Hey, welcome to the Mead House, and thanks for listening to episode number 198. 198, holy cow. Almost 200, Ryan. What are we doing for show 200, I wonder?
Margaritas.
And margaritas. Sounds good to me. I'll drink to that. But hey, we'll get to that here in just a minute. But hey, I was just cleaning out the chicken coop and Jeff and Ryan pulled up to get ready for the show. And I'll probably have to trim the dog's toenails after they leave. But hey, my name is JD Webb, and you're at the Mead House for the next 90 minutes. And as a reminder, this is show number 6 of this session, so we'll be on 2 weeks hiatus after this episode, back on May 25th. Now, after that, I'll be on the road, and we'll be attempting to bring the podcast to you from across the country as I travel all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. So hang tight, stay with us, and we'll be sure to get some good shows out to you. Hey, the play locations. You know, the Mead House podcast can be found on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Spotify. I run through this list every week, week in and week out. YouTube, and now on Amazon Music, all over the place, a whole bunch of other places. Check the front page of the website, themeadhouse.com, for more locations. Hey, in this episode, continuing with the pandemic brewing series this session, and ending up our 6-week stint here. Our guest this episode was last year on episode 74. It seems like 100 years ago, or so it seemed. They call him the Bee Whisperer. He's worked with Worlds of Wonder, Discovery Channel, Bees Without Borders, the Pearl Foundation, Boys and Girl Scouts, various 4-H groups, the Rotary Club, and it just goes on and on and on. This guy is into all kinds of things, educating people about bees and beekeeping. Michael Jordan joins us this episode, and to talk about some braggot projects he's been working on. In segment 2, we're wrapping up our 6-week set on brewing during the pandemic again. You know, we were all vaccinated, or some of us. Mask orders are being rescinded in some places and whatnot. We thought we'd throw out to the table here what we kind of learned about it, what we did differently, and what we might be changing for the future. And then, of course, we wrap the show with the Social Club. This is where we try to answer questions from mead makers with no formal expertise other than what we've experienced in our own brew house. All that and more here at the Mead House. But first, hey, a big thank you to all the Mead House key holders who help keep the Mead House podcast free. You too can become a Mead House key holder and help support the show for as little as $2 a month. We've got some great thank you gifts to send out to you, plus a listing of keyholder-only content. So get on over to patreon.com, search for the Mead House, or just click on the link in the show notes. What are we drinking tonight? Hey, it's Tequila Tuesday again in my house. I stumbled upon a bottle that I had forgotten that I had. And this is one of my favorites. It's got an older brother, an extra añejo, but this one happens to be a reposado. This is Jose Cuervo de la Familia Special Reserve Reposado, aged in 3 barrels, heavy toasted American oak, French oak, and lightly toasted American oak. And then on the nose, oh man, barrel char right off the bat. A deep vanilla aroma, toffee, and the taste. Mm-mm-mm. Oh, that agave sweetness right up front, like a sweet cooked agave. Lots of vanilla right as you get to about mid palate. Toffee, dark caramels on the mid palate, barrel char lingering in there, all the way to the back with some spices off of that heavily toasted oak. Really, really nice. And its older brother is just exquisite, the Extra Añejo. Jose Cuervo de la Familia Reserva Reposado. And in my other hand, I got to take a swig of water after that because this next one is really good. Mm-mm-mm. All right, this is another one that came into my box, Jeff, from Sap House. Poor Ryan sitting there without any. He'll never get any until he subscribes. And we keep teasing him about it too, don't we? Every week, every time, right?
It's 4 great little packages you get to surprise yourself with, and a little bit of delight to add to your evening.
I'm telling you, for $75 a quarter, well worth the money if you're into good tasting mead. This one happens to be Bramble. Now, this is a blackberry maple mead. I'm gonna guess it was probably made with wildflower honey. I lost the paper that came with it, and I'm too lazy to go to the website and look it up. But if I were to venture a guess, I mean, who cares what honey? The bottom line is this is probably the single best blackberry mead that I've tasted. Why? One reason and one reason only. It doesn't taste like Kool-Aid, like blackberry Kool-Aid. It's got one of those, I think I talked about it last week, this perceptual sweetness that kind of comes from the flavor of the fruit. It's not a sweet mead by any stretch of the mind, but it's got this sweetness about it that really highlights the fruit really well. And it's got a tartness that kind of blends in with it and just makes it perfect. I mean, oh my Lord.
Very nicely balanced, you're right.
I'm telling you, on the nose, it's like Blackberry City. I mean, if you dig real deep, now this is at room temperature now, so it's probably 74 degrees in here. I'm getting, just tons of blackberry, a little whiff of honey and blackberry, but the flavor, this is like popping a blackberry in your mouth. Unbelievable. It's not sweet. It's dry on the finish. Ryan, you would really enjoy this. This would be a good table wine with a good red meat dinner, hamburgers. Really good, Jeff. I really like this. So, Ryan, what did you put in your cup tonight?
I was really tempted, because this is our last show of the set, I was really tempted to crack open a couple of the bottles that I had teased in earlier episodes, the Brew Firm Belgian Pale Braggot and the Rosé. And I did more than think about it. I held them in my hand. But I decided, you don't want to rush things, don't want to, jump the gun here. And I'm always honest, when I'm on the show.
Yep.
So I don't want to, say, hey, they're great if they weren't, because I cracked them a little too early. They weren't just all the way there yet. So I'm gonna give those just a couple more weeks. That's all I think they'll need. And when we come back, I will definitely be opening them and talking about them. But I felt that little rush. I think we've all felt that as mead makers. You want to open something maybe a little bit too soon, and I've learned my lesson. I've done that quite a few times, to be completely honest. So what I did open I almost played bottle roulette tonight. Almost played bottle roulette, but I was able to tell what it was because, well, I said it's either a red piment, like a red berry piment, or it's my dark braggot, one way or the other. But I was able, because they had two bottles and I kind of mixed them up a little bit, when I put them in the fridge, and I was able to tell because the one had the sediment bed, on the bottom from the bottle conditioning, and I go, okay, I know that one's there's the braggot. Let's take that one. So I'm drinking one of my dark braggots tonight, and something that I've been told a couple of times here is that I kind of undersell my stuff. I talk about it. I say, oh, it's it's a little bottle, a little this, a little that. But I just, some folks that have tried this stuff have said, you really kind of undersell it. And I go, okay, well, sorry about that. I've got kind of a Midwestern humility, I guess, about me, and just kind of, say, oh, not too bad, kind of a thing. So I thought I'd tell a little bit more about this one. This is one of my dark braggots. I'd say it's almost got the body of like a Schwarzbier, but I'll get into that in a second. It's motor oil black with a gorgeous dark tan brown head on it. You get good coffee, a good medium roast coffee and bittersweet chocolate on the nose, and then when you drink it, it's very light bodied. It's like the Schwarzbier, really really light bodied. Also really effervescent. I do kind of highly carbonate my stuff, and then it's dry. Make no mistake about it, it's very dry, but on the palate, that bittersweet chocolate kind of transforms into semi-sweet chocolate.
Ooh.
And it's really really pleasant. Finishes dry, finishes clean. Just a little bit of bitterness in it, and I'm really enjoying this. I'm not getting a ton of the honey in it anymore. It's a little bit colder than I usually drink it, which might have something to do with it. But I think that's also where the semi-sweet chocolate comes in, is because that honey sweetness is playing against the roasted malts. But no, it's very good, very nice. Really, really enjoy this one. I've only got maybe a half dozen or so bottles left, and then it's on to the next thing. So that's what's in my cup tonight, JD, and it is a bomber bottle. It's a 22-ounce bomber bottle. So that's in both my hands.
That's in both your hands. That's a two-handed bottle.
There you go.
Jeff, sometimes I think people just listen to the show to listen to us talk about, the aromas and the smells, all that. What is in your cup tonight? And tell us about your aroma and what you're smelling.
Sure. Well, as a matter of fact, I was actually really close to popping open that Bramble tonight too, but we are deep in the throes of getting this house ready to sell. In fact, my wife is probably, as we speak, rolling paint in the master bedroom, trying to just spiff stuff up. I'm probably going to be spending our off 2 weeks, installing flooring and putting in some new vinyl windows and all kinds of fun stuff. In the midst of all that, we've been cleaning out closets, we've been packing stuff up, and I found a milk crate that got put aside, probably 2 years ago, deep in the back hall closet, and thought, wow, there's some old stuff in here. Some of these were old and some of these were good. So I kind of said, well, I no sense holding on to these. Maybe I'll do some tasting notes on the show and see how age has hit a couple of my past favorites here. So in my first glass, I have my hibiscus and chamomile. This is now the hibiscus and chamomile that I first did. I took home a third in category cup from Mazer Cup in this one, and I attempted to scale this up to a 5-gallon batch. So I'm drinking the scale up now, and it didn't go as planned. I don't think I got enough of either flavor for the scale up, and so I wasn't completely pleased with it. And sat a little bit as well. So I'm getting some almost the hibiscus is strong in the nose, almost with some jammy kind of sweetness to it, and a little bit of just like that kind of sherry oxidization notes. It's not unpleasant, but it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the oxidization comes through like right on the tip of the tongue. You get a little bit more of the hibiscus as it goes over the mid palate, and the chamomile is fairly muted, honestly. I get chamomile more than anything. Like after I swallow and take another deep breath in, that's when I get kind of that more herbal character from that. This is probably 2-3 years old at this point. It used to be a nice kind of ruby red, and now it's almost a mahogany reddish brown. So that color is fading out too. The right time to drink this was probably a while ago, but it's still okay.
There you go.
The other one is my dry apple pie mead, and I was really pleased with this one when I put this together. It had a really nice pie spice kind of mix, and I had a bunch of different spices in there. I was very pleased with the balance of those. Had very apple forward flavor, and still getting a lot of apple on the nose as well as some cinnamon.
Oh wow.
And the apple and cinnamon are there up front. At this point, it's more of an apple cinnamon mead than like an explicitly pie spice mead. The other spices are pretty muted. If I remember right, there was some nutmeg, some allspice, and some cardamom that went into this. And I think if I search for it, I get the cardamom. But the nutmeg and the allspice are kind of they're fading as well. With spiced fruit, metheglin style meads, I think you do lose some of that balance as it ages. The flavor just doesn't hang on, right? So this might be another one where the right time to drink it was a while back, and it was sitting in a closet, unfortunately. So still enjoyable, but I probably would have enjoyed it a year ago a little bit more.
I've always been curious. We all know the vanilla tends to fade away after time, along with some other flavors. I've often wondered about spices like allspice and cinnamon, and some of these more common things that we seem to throw in on a mead every now and again. And I wonder if we can talk one of our listeners into doing some small batch stuff out there and just do an experiment. Do a mead with, say, nutmeg, one with cinnamon, one with allspice, one with pumpkin spice, and just brew them up, let them sit, and see which one fades the fastest. Maybe the mead house can create some white paper on what spices fade the quickest. I don't know, but anyway, we do have a special guest tonight, don't we?
We do. So our guest tonight is Michael Jordan, and Michael got in touch with us a while back regarding a braggot project that he was working on.
Awesome.
Towards the end of the year. Of course, we are the appropriate people to talk about a braggot project. His project involves 6 different braggots, and there is a level of theater involved with this project as well. It's
Wow.
It's not just the drinks themselves; it's also the story of drinking and enjoying these drinks. And I don't want to get too far into it without him being able to throw his 2 cents in here. So let's just bring him on. Michael, what's in your cup tonight?
Oh, well, gentlemen, I appreciate you having me back. So for, as JD said, 100 years. I appreciate you guys tuning me in. I'm drinking actually some of the braggots that we're talking about, and I'm drinking actually a blueberry lemonade that was made on Group Brew Day back in February, and it's a really nice blueberry lemonade that we tried we're trying to get 500 people to brew the same beverage on the same day at the same time to maybe set a Guinness Book of World Record. And,
Oh, wow. That's an
Yeah.
undertaking.
yeah, it's to get everybody tuned in at the same time and then have it recorded where it's all like on a registered venue. Yeah, we're working on it, goals and what people like. But,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm drinking a blueberry lemonade, and then I'm actually just finishing up the Little John Groot out of the stuff that you guys they should be coming by Monday. I tried to get them out, and then I found out I needed phone numbers for FedEx, and that messed me up. But yeah, you guys should have these 6 drinks actually come into your locations in these 8-ounce containers.
Well, thank you, Michael.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Thank you.
something kind of different to try.
So, Michael, let's kind of start with a basic overview. What's the idea behind this braggot project that we're talking about?
Well, it kind of goes back like when we talked back in the episode in '74 that I have historical where my family's been brewing since 906 AD and brewing, and we talked about Groot. Groot was the drink of the peasants. It was the scraps of the kitchen thrown in a bucket with bread and water, and it fermented, and it basically had stuff like burdock root and dandelion and just fruits and stuff that were left over from the kitchen. And they drank it, and it was Groot, Gruite. It's a historical drink, and it was drank by the peasants. And then the working class people, which was the labor of the land, drank ale, which was the grains, and it eventually hopped drink, higher in alcohol, more hearty, more robust. The fruits of the land were the landowners. They had the peaches, the grapes, the apples, and it was a sweeter drink, more flavorful, more blendable to do more things with, and higher in alcohol. And then we knew the king had mead. He controlled the beekeeper who said these fields get pollinated, these fruit trees get pollinated. This church gets beeswax because they paid good taxes. The beeswax will make candles to light the coffers so we can get more taxes. So, the king controlled the lot, but then he made mead, and his beekeeper made mead. So his friar at the time would make the king's mead, and it was the essence of his land. And, that's a really good story, and everybody looks it up, and it's really cool. But we figured that it's really cool if you could do the bragging rights of brewing. Because it's one thing to make a beer, and it's one thing to make a wine, and people make various meads, but if you can blend them together without distilling them or adding something to flavor them at the end, it's almost the bragging rights of brewing, or braggots, where you add grains to the drink. So we grained a Groot, and we grained not only the Groot, but then we added it to a traditional mead. And it's a complex chocolate stout braggot by blending honey, braggot, chocolate infused mead and grain, and then a Groot made with like mudwort and dandelion and burdock. It's like a chocolate stout, but it's on the lower end. And then we blended the labor of the land together with a mead, and we made Robin Hood. And most people would think of that maybe a barley wine.
Mm-hmm.
But
Sure.
what we did is we made a simple ale without hops, a nice simple ale without hops, and then we blended it with a traditional King's mead. And that's it's a braggot. That's what a braggot is: a beer and a mead put together. And that's a traditional braggot. We call it Robin Hood. And the story is that, Robin Hood was a good man, and this is just a good braggot.
Yep.
And, I told you guys some of the, the story and stuff that we tell. The spelling in isn't real good because I gave you guys basic copy. But, that the next thing goes into wine, which was the fruit of the land. So then we blended a traditional mead with a traditional wine, which was a peach wine. And then we made a peach beer, and we blended those together. And we made a braggot using wines. And then we made a double IPA. And then we made a sour cherry wine. And then we made a dark cherry Marmel mead. And we blended those together. And that was our Sheriff of Nottingham, because it's a sour cherry braggot. It's a double IPA. I think that's the one a lot of people like. But that's, as we get going, like we start with Groot. We went to the labor, the fruit, and then we're actually blending the fruits, the labor, and everything together. And we get further on, it's Friar Tuck, and it's an apple braggot. We make actually an apple beer and apple cider.
Wow.
And then we blend them all together with some spices and some pine needles and stuff. So it's like Christmas. You can serve it hot or cold, over ice. All these are over 18% alcohol. So if you put your head down and breathe in and they bubble in your mouth, and you swallow, you go, ooh, there's some alcohol in this. So they blend out. And then the last one is King Richard. And he's basically, he's brought everything from other kingdoms together, many honeys, many spices, many things. And we basically took that system of drinking basic drinks and we blended them together with meads and grains and everything together to make some really superior braggots. And we did this 3-hour show at Brothers Drake Meadery in Ohio. People came and got to hear about the history of drinking, and then how we made it into a story of Nottingham, and how the most complex drink is the Groot, where we boiled. Man, it has so much in it to make it so special that we boiled buckwheat honey and bouchered it, and as it was boiling, we then infused Toblerone chocolate in the honey. So then the chocolate was the brochet chocolarized honey.
Oh my God!
So there's an infusion. So we infuse that, and then we take that as it boils with water, and then add the grain to it. So I mean, like Robin Hood, we actually took our honey from our beehive, rolled the grain in our honey, and roasted it. So the grain was actually honey roasted grain before we used it. So I mean, some of it's pretty, intense and pretty high quality stuff, man.
That sounds like not only high quality, high price, but also an intense amount of labor going into this. I mean, this sounds like a labor of love project for you here.
Yeah, well, COVID was going on, and I used to have bottling parties, and you could get a lot of people together and do a lot of stuff, have a band play and throw food, and people get together, and you could have them drink your meads and pay for food and all kinds of stuff. And when COVID came, I couldn't do that. So we developed this program so we could go to places and still show our meads and our stuff, but do it in a program where people really enjoy it and will pay for a show. I mean, like, we're going to actually do this show one more time at Brothers Drake in August. And that way people can see the story of brewing. And, we've stepped up our game on brewing, because we actually like doing this show now that we've done 3 or 4 of them. It's really fun. And the next one we're going to do is Sherlock Holmes and the Morning Glory Murders.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Great. Yeah, we've got 4 different meads that we're making that are really floral, and some of them have morning glory in it, which we know has some effect. Just like the last round we did here with our King Richard, it has yarrow and heather and stuff in it that, give you squiggly lines. And if you drink too much of it, gives you the king's effect of, grandeur,
So,
what I mean?
so braggots, Mike, braggots are an actual part of historical brewing. Then is that am I reading this right?
Well, not necessarily historical brewing. When people say braggot, they usually say it's a grained infused wine or a mead that has grain added it. And if you look at on the beer end, it's a honey beer or what we would call a barley wine. So I mean, there's a thing about it, and it depends on what side you fall on. And we decided to take it that if you could take wine and you could take beer and you could take mead and you could blend them together, not only are you good at making beers, wines, and meads, if you could blend them together, that's like the bragging rights, right? You're graining everything, and you're adding alcohol content on a natural sugar level that's higher than most things. That's a braggot. You've got some bragging rights that are going on.
Yeah, I'm just not aware. I mean, I know, according to the BJCP, it says harmonious blend of beer and wine, or beer and mead, but I don't know how far back that goes. I mean, who started it? Where did braggots come from? That's the part that I don't understand. So I don't know if there's any historical value to that or not. But
I don't know the historical value. I know that some of the recipes of, like I said, I have a little ledger book that I had translated, and it talks about the labor of the land and adding it to the essence, and essence was the honey that was made from everything. I don't know when it was all started or the history. We just thought, graining and adding everything together, and like I said, like you said, the rules state it's adequate blending of grain and together. So we just kind of thought it was fun to say these are braggots because they have grains in them. And all of them are a mead. Yeah. So we've blended a beer. Like when you really get into it, you drink that Sheriff of Nottingham. It's a double IPA. The hops comes out. The sour cherry comes out. And it's really when the blend comes out, it's huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there is a lot of blending going on with these that I'm hearing about. Talk a little bit about your approach to blending. I mean, are we doing, when you're blending these through, are you going for specific flavors that you're trying to kind of marry or balance? Are you trying to get one more dominant than the other? Just how are you approaching that?
So we took it on how historically the story we tell, like Groot. That's our Little John and the Grooted men of the forest. And I think when I look back and I was looking at it, because in our book it talks about Groot and it's the scraps of the kitchen, but I think it was still made up until like the 17th century.
Right.
And it was made from earthy things. So we made a mead or braggot because it has grain.
Mm-hmm.
And what we did is we made a chocolate stout. And then we made a chocolate mead where, like I said, we infused and boiled honeys and we made a chocolate mead and then we blended them together. And what we were looking for was an earthy smell, a earthy taste, but like a porter or a stout. If you have somebody that really likes a deep porter, right? I had a guy drink this and he says, the carbonation in some of them, because some of them stayed carbonated, he says it's almost like drinking a chocolate soda. But he really likes chocolate stouts, right? But, when some people smell it, it has a really earthy smell. And you don't get the chocolate that's infused until the end. That's the finishing of it, is we made it so it finished with chocolate at the end because it's infused in the honey. So when the honey and sugars were all blended out, that was the residual aftertaste that makes that flavor. So in the story, you know, Groot is the poor man's drink, and we decided to take the poor man's drink and make it pretty complex. And something that would be really fun to drink, that would be earthy and dark and chocolate. And that's kind of how we went about this. That as you go through, like I said, Robin Hood, I broke my wife's coffee roaster. We rolled honey and the grain together and roasted it. So we roasted honey in the grain that we got. So when you steamed it and all the stuff, you know, it got all the essence. You know, we tried to do some really cool stuff to bring out a good, because Robin Hood is a straight ale, no hops. The way it was made originally, a straight ale. And when you guys drink it, it's going to be a sweet barley wine. You're going to go, wow, this is a big change from that Groot, right? Because the Groot's really strong. It comes off really hard and hearty and robust. But it kind of goes with the story. They were the Grooted men of the forest. They were hardy and robust. You know, so as the story, we tried to make the history of going from ales to wines to also go with the formulations with the taste. That Maid Miriam is a peaches and cream, and we used mangoes and peaches, and we actually took the pulp and stuff when we got it going, and we boiled the pulp and added the grain to the boiling pulp and grained the pulp to make the braggot. So it wasn't like we made the beer and water and then blended it together. We grained actually the fruit itself. So we tried to do some really complex stuff to bring out some really flavors. And like I said, when you read Maid Miriam, I gave you what we read and what we tell for the story. And I hope you guys drink it and really try and, like I said, they come in 8-ounce bottles. Drink 4 ounces of it. Read the stuff as you drink it.
Yeah.
And we go through and listen to this and say, you know, I'm going to drink it as the poor man would drink it. I'm going to bubble it, do the vino, where you bubble it in your mouth and taste all the stuff. And they're just really interesting. And like I said, when you get to the last one, which is King Richard, we made it so that there has no aftertaste. So you drink it and you get citrus and you get a blend of flowers and you think, oh man, it's getting spicy, and then it doesn't, and all of a sudden the flavor drops completely off. And you're like, oh, I tasted again to see what I got. So I want to see where I missed something. And the next thing you do, you drink 8 ounces of it, and you feel the because we made it so it doesn't have a finishing flavor on it.
Yeah.
That when it's all said and done, it's dry, and at the end it stops. You go, there's got to be something more to this, and that's just how it was made. It has a lot of stuff in it, from florals to zesting. Some of these we boil the honey. Some of them we don't. We infuse chocolate with some of it. We tried to do as much as we could to make the theory of drinking, from wine, beers, mead to Groot, without distilling, to bring it all the way up. And we thought, what was a good story that everybody remembers was Nottingham.
Yeah. That the show you talked about in Ohio, Mike, was it recorded at all or no?
There was a couple people that recorded some stuff there. There are some videos floating around. The gentleman that owns that is managing it now, his name's Julian. Ohio just opened, and they were looking for something to bring people into their establishment. That COVID shut down a lot of stuff on the East Coast carrier. I'm in Wyoming. The reason I do the stuff I do and travel what I do is because there's only 50,000 people in the city of Cheyenne, and that's the state capital. So I've catered mead to everybody here in Cheyenne already knows me, because that's so I do other things, and over there it was really fun. It was at Brothers Drake, we're looking at doing another show of it in August.
If you if you don't mind, email me info@themeathouse.com. Give me all the specs about it, the next show, where it's going to be, the whole 9 yards, and we'd love to put it up on the website if it's okay with you.
Oh yeah, that's no problem. Like I said, I've learned that it's a lot more fun to be educational as well as entertaining.
Yeah.
So I can take a lot of meat a lot of places because I'm not selling it. I'm giving it away.
Yeah.
And the people that are coming, right, they're like Brothers Drake will pay an entrance fee. And they have a band, and they're serving. The last time I think they were serving pierogies and man, something else. It was super cheesy. It was awesome.
Ryan, you've been sitting over there pretty quiet at your end of the table. I mean, this guy. This guy's taking it to the next level here.
Yeah, Michael, it's great to have you back on the show again. Can't wait to try some of your stuff here when it comes later in the week. And I probably will have to listen to this episode once I'm tasting those. I want to talk to you about hear a little about your braggots and your gruits. Talk to me a little bit about the yeasts that you're pairing with those. Are you using beer yeasts or what are you using, and how are you kind of thinking about that?
Well, so I'm on a couple different media sites. You can pair different things. Like when you do Marmel's, I'm using a 4x4 yeast. But I make most of my traditional meads high in honey, and I'm using a Premier Blanc yeast. And I talk and I do some stuff. And Yellow Star Premier Blanc Yellow Pack yeast, they pretty much send me stuff. They get it in a jar. I mean, I get a big thing of it. They let me play with it. And it is my go-to yeast on everything except for when I made the IPA. And I listed, I don't think I listed the yeast on it, but it's a White Lab Hardy lager yeast for it. And then after it's all done, we blend. Like I said, these are blended with meads. I make the beers and stuff together, and then I blend them in to make these things happen. But most of them are the Yellow Star Premier Blanc yeast to make all the fermentation happen. It usually takes 4 months for fermentation to finish on some of them because it's such a guaranteed low rolling fermentation to guarantee what I want.
Well, thank you. That's great. So when you're using the lager yeast, are you doing it at lager temperatures?
I'm dropping everything in my underground meadery is at 68 to 72 degrees constantly year round.
Got it. Okay. Excellent stuff. Love to hear how people are doing it and what they have. It's been great. Jeff, what else do you have?
So right at the top of the show, you talked about the brew. Was it a blueberry lemonade mead? Tell us a little bit about that. That was with it's the Micro Meads and Brewers group on Facebook, right?
Yeah, correct. That group and the Underground Meadery, we tried to promote it, and we try to get in any group that we could. On February 22nd every year, we try to do whatever. It was on only for the last year. It was only on Facebook Messenger, and that people could log on. But now that there's Zoom and all kinds of stuff, we're expanding. 22nd of this year was, I think, our biggest one. And we had hundreds of people on the same day brew a 2-gallon batch of a blueberry lemonade. We gave out the rest. I think the recipe was given out in December. I think that's when John Duncan puts it out, is in December. And then that way everybody can get on their calendar on February 22nd. Tune in. We'll go through it. We teach you how to boil and juice, how to take your frozen blueberries and strain them and put them in your bucket, because we recommend using a bucket than using those neck jugs and stuff. But yeah, we all get together, we brew it, and then hopefully everybody at one time will get together and drink it. You can taste everybody's different because everybody uses different honey. People's blueberries come from different frozen sources, and it's really fun. When I went to Ohio for the thing at Brothers Drake, 2 guys brought theirs, so we got to taste some different blueberry meats, and all of us actually brewed them on that 22nd. And basically it's like 3 pounds of blueberries and 1 nice Mylar lemon that you can zest and chop up and put in, and you let it ferment for the 42 days. You rack it all out. You add the other 2 pounds of blueberries. You let it set for another 30 days to 42 days, and then rack it out and see what your measurements are. And hopefully the fermentation's done, and it's I like a little pulp in mine. I don't rack out a lot of stuff. And some people see my videos. I get a lot of grief that people are like, oh, you're oxidizing everything. And I'm like, no, I'm just decarbing. One guy's ways, another guy, one guy's terrorist is another guy's patriot or whatever, I like a little, you guys are going to get some, and you look at that group, you go, man, I think the guy took stuff out of the stool from a porta potty, because that's what it looks like. It's a dark, soupy looking mix, and it smells earthy and robust, right? And then you drink it, and you go, "Oh my God, this is a chocolate port stout. This is great. This is a port. This is a port wine. Yeah, this is a port wine and a port beer. Yeah, so the group and stuff. When we went through, we actually looked at some of the historical values and stuff and blended them to be fun."
Jeez.
And the blueberry lemonade that was brewed with the group, man, it's really fun. It smells really good. I think it'd be really good on ice in the summertime. Now, man, I got summer fever going on.
Yeah,
I hear you.
No kidding.
Well, Michael, it's been amazing having you on. It's been a ton of fun. We're so looking forward to trying these braggots. On one hand, it's a shame I don't have them tonight. On the other hand, with all of them being 18% plus, maybe it's a good thing that I'm not drinking all 6 of them and trying to record them. But man, looking forward to it, and it's been great having you on.
Oh yeah, I appreciate it. It's super funny. We poured like the 4-ounce things, and when everybody's done, they go, "Wow, I got a really good buzz." I go, "Well, you just drink 24 ounces." Oh, that isn't very much. Well, at 18%, you're doing really good, pal. You're doing good. It's really good. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy them. Thanks for having me on. You're doing lots of stuff on braggot.
Yep.
And I think if you can blend stuff and use grains and meats, and I get a lot of flack. Like I said, I'm the 1 gallon THC blender that people get mad about. So I'm that guy, and I think you should experiment and try stuff. Throw a Jolly Rancher in. It's not a great tradition, but you're crazy. And I appreciate you throwing a chocolate cake in there or some beard hair or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Right up my alley, dude. I love that stuff. Good stuff, Michael. Let's not make it another 100 years before we get you back here, all right? And that's our fault, dude.
We'll talk about Sherlock Holmes sometime.
Absolutely. I
Sounds
love
good.
it.
Love you guys. Drink
Thanks.
up and eat on.
Thanks, Mike. Be careful. Take care. Oh, wow. Guy's always a ball of fun. You know.
Yeah, you got to love the experimentation and
Oh yeah, man.
and all the different directions. It sounds like these are going to be really interesting, complex meads, and oh man,
Yeah.
I'm curious. I'm real curious.
Yeah, I can't wait for that box to get here now. I didn't know he
Right.
was sending some stuff out, but Michael, if you listen to the show, thanks a million. I should have said that on the show, but I didn't. I apologize. But again, thanks a million. Moving right along here, guys. Segment 2 here. We, for the last 6 weeks, been talking about this whole brewing during the pandemic deal here, and we've talked to a lot of folks, Jeff. And about their brewing habits, what they did, what they didn't do. We ran across one medal-winning mead maker who spent a lot of his time cleaning house, working on household projects, and it kind of ran the gamut, right?
Oh yeah. We've talked to a bunch of people that kind of stepped up their brewing, and I know I've talked to a few people privately that have been, the brewing has been the last thing on their mind with everything else going on, and it's different strokes for different folks. I totally understand where everybody is coming from there because it's either it's the last thing on your mind or it's like, God, I just need some sense of normalcy, and brewing is what I do. So.
Well, and I wonder how that's changed people's brewing habits from here on out.
It's a good question, and I know from working at a brew store for the first couple months of this pandemic, we definitely had a bunch of people coming in that they had been homebrewers at one point, maybe even avid homebrewers, and they just kind of let things fall to the wayside. And then, apparently the impulse hit them that, like, man, I'm home all the time now. And
boredom finally set in, right?
I should make a beer, or I should make a mead, or I should make a wine. And they just come in and it's like, hey, the owner's like, I know you. You used to come here all the time. Like, oh yeah, hey Jackie, how you doing? Blah blah blah. It's people just picked up that old hobby, and it kind of struck a fire for a lot of people that they wanted to get back into it. So I know from what I've heard, that was a common thread kind of across the homebrew industry, that a lot of people were picking it back up. Like I said before, a lot of people are kind of been like, well, they had other things to do, and that's understandable too. But it is really interesting to see so many people taking different tacks with that,
Yeah. Ryan, you live in the heartland of mead making up there in Minnesota, and I can't help but think that you've probably gotten around, talked to a lot of people during this whole pandemic thing. Have you learned anything? Kind of boil it down a little bit. I know we've talked to a couple of people on the show from up there, what have you got so far out of this last year or so, this pandemic deal here?
Well, people's drinking definitely changed. I'll tell you, or picked up.
More or less.
Well, both ways actually. Some people drink more, some drink less. But I think a lot of the people I know drink more. I tell you, I got some friends that have had just caches of bottles. Like hundreds of bottles in their cellars, and they'd always say, "Oh, this one just needs a couple more years." It's kind of like taking it's not perfect, but I'm just going to age it out approach to it. Talked to one guy that probably had 200 wine bottles, worth of mead, in his cellar, and was always saying like, another year, another 2 years, it'll be good. Yeah, I drank a bottle, it's another 2 years. Yeah, those are all gone now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, people definitely, are, I think, to Jeff's point, I think they took the opportunity to do something, whether it was clean stuff out, to hone in their brewing, to try some experiments, to maybe streamline, to maybe clean up. I also saw a lot of people, as many people as I saw buying equipment, I saw a lot of people streamlining equipment. So not necessarily, I mean, some people probably were getting out of brewing altogether and trying to clean out a room or clean out a garage or something. But I think a lot were just streamlining and saying, maybe I don't need 15 kegs, or maybe I don't need 20 carboys.
Yeah.
Maybe I can streamline this a little bit. So that's what I think. I think people really are just completely all over the spectrum. I'd say that my hope out of all of this is that a bunch of people who were actively brewing found more, got better, found more passion in the hobby. That people who maybe had done it at one point, but then had kind of gone cold, had gotten reinvigorated and decided it was something they wanted to do. You could do at home and get a nice product out of it. And then lastly, I hope a lot of new people came into it. I know I talked to one guy, I gave him some equipment of mine, who was getting into it. He was living, just a couple miles away and was very, outgoing, extrovert, social guy. And, I think he had brewed twice in his life with his dad or something. And just, I want to get into this. So I gave him a kettle and hydrometer and some bottles and just some odds and ends and stuff I had around, just kind of help Mo get started. And I hope a lot of people, got started and got into this hobby. I mean, this will be the last thing I say because I'm starting to ramble, but a couple of years ago, I think it was an AHA survey showed that there had been about right around 1 million people in the U.S. who homebrew, and the number had dipped. I forget if it was like 2018 to 19 or 19 to 20 or something like that, but the number had dipped. It had actually gone down, and I hope that it picks back up. I mean, there's an economy out there of small homebrew shops, and a lot of them had come on hard times. And so, I hope that this time helped boost the hobby a little bit. So I'll stop there.
Well, go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to say, I honestly hope that the people that picked it back up kind of they had a second wind of going, oh yeah, this is why I like this, and they keep going with it, even though things are starting to relax a little bit now. I mean, we're not completely out of the woods, but it feels like things are opening back up. Things are getting a little bit better. People are getting the vaccine, and people are, the mask mandates are going away slowly but surely. So I don't want to say we're returning to a sense of normalcy, but I feel like we're relaxing a little bit.
Yeah.
And that I kind of.
I can see it going both ways. I can see Ryan's point where, maybe part of the reason why it dipped is because now you've got potentially two people at home in the household, two adults at home instead of one or both. Maybe mom worked and the kids were off at daycare or whatever, but whenever everything changed and suddenly you got two parents at home, now it's your turn to watch the kids, or you watch them in the morning, I'll take them in the afternoon, or school's out. I mean, nobody's in school anymore, so I can see that where suddenly I can't brew as often as I used to because I have kids at home that I need to watch, and maybe they're toddlers, youngsters, whatnot, that might get in the way or get hurt or whatever. I can see that. But then on the flip side, I can also see, some of these hardcore home brewers, with all this extra time off, maybe a few that had a few bucks packed away for a rainy day and decided, I'm going to amp up my brewing. Here's my opportunity, and take advantage of it. I can see both sides of that coin. For my own personal, I've brewed a lot less. I've been talking about it over a year now. I'm condensing down because I was brewing way too much. And I haven't brewed anything. I brewed a couple of things, very simple Ryan Braggots. I love my Citra hops, and I love my California 001 ale yeast. I think that makes a terrific braggot, brewed or fermented at 68 degrees, and just let it do its thing. And I've done
Yeah.
some hop stands. I've added in during the boil. I've done some different things. Nothing outrageous to speak of. They all tasted different, but they all tasted good. And that's pretty much it. I mean, by the time I get it out of the fermenter and into a keg, of course, the neighbors, you show up on the patio with a glass full of beer. It's like, hey, you got any more? so, so
Yeah.
the keg go quickly, but like I said, in talking about it for over a year, I have really slimmed down. I'm going to be really condensing my brewing habits. I haven't brewed anything for several months because I don't, I mentioned before on the show, we're going the entire month of June. We're going to be traveling cross country. And so I didn't want to have anything going during the time that, might need my attention during the time that we were going to be gone. So purposely, I haven't brewed anything. I still got those brew firm projects, Ryan, that are sitting in the box that they came in that I haven't done anything with. And believe me, I've been listening intently on your talks about them. So, but anyway, Jeff, so your brewing habits, have they changed? And I know you're moving, you got all this thing going
Yeah.
on. So that was a big impact on your brewing habit over the pandemic. But early on,
we've been kind of slowly ramping up to this and really hitting our stride in the last month and a half. But in understanding of that, I mean, the last stuff I brewed was late in the fall, maybe early in the winter, and I've just been kind of getting stuff into bottles and getting stuff out of fermenters so that the fermenters can go into storage too. Now that said, early on in the pandemic process, I feel like my company was a little bit early to send people to work from home compared to some of the other people that I've spoken to. And I know we hit a real lull with the amount of work that I was being asked to do. So
Yeah.
I found myself with little half-hour chunks of time randomly throughout the day, a lot of the days, where like, okay, well, I mean, what do I do? I
Yeah.
wound up going through and like I spent seriously probably 3 days out of a week just organizing, sorting, and cleaning all the empty bottles that I had collected over
Mhm.
God knows how many years of home brewing, and probably took half of them to the recycle bin.
yeah.
At the end of the day, I was like, look, I've got so many bottles, and when I go to bottle, I want these bottles, not these bottles. So why am I even holding on to these?
Yeah.
And there are, along with the bottles I like, there are some that have been like, we had a big party and the bottles didn't get rinsed right, so there's crud at the bottom of half of them, but they're all stuck in a box because it was handy, it was there.
Mhm.
And so I took some time to just go through all of my bottles, make sure everything is clean. And the next time I went to do a bottling session, it was like, wow, I've got whole cases of bottles, all bottles that I want to use for this project.
Yeah.
And I could just star sand and go. This is great.
I gave up. I gave up those bottles a long time ago when I discovered that kegs were the only way to go.
And I love kegs. When we were having like a big social gathering, like once a quarter or so, it was nice to just put a couple kegs out and be like, okay, well, this one is this one is a wet braggot, and this one is a blueberry session, and blah blah blah. You guys drink up. We weren't doing that anymore.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no kidding. Even to sit out on the patio out here, I mean, I wouldn't take a whole keg out there, but I would, when I was bottling some stuff, I would take bottles and throw them in a little cooler and take them out on the patio. And, we sit out there on a summer evening and just, yak and drink beer or mead or whatever, braggots.
Sure.
the ciders that I would make, and just have a nice little community fun time. Maybe somebody throw something on a barbecue out on the patio, and we sit there and snack on something. But it was a lot of fun. And then I got out of the bottles completely. And then one of those nights occurred again. And I thought, oh shit, I don't have any bottles of anything. All I have is big kegs. I got 5-gallon kegs. What do I do with that? And so the next time it happened, I thought, okay, I need to get smart about this. So I got all the connections that I could hook up to my Keyser, and I could fill bottles right out of the tap. So at least I had something to present at the next, like community or little in-house community get together out on the patio. But anyway,
sure. When you're doing it like that, you need like what, 12 bottles max?
Yeah, maybe a half a case, just to share. Right. I mean, because everybody else is bringing their Coronas and whatnot from the liquor store, so we'd always have a couple, 2-3 cases of beer at least out there on the patio on a summer night when some of the local folks here in the building would get together and just go out there and have a good old time. But
well, and it's kind of the same way we were having with I talked an agent a day ago when we were first doing our New Year's resolutions, not this New Year's but last New Year's. We had social gatherings probably quarterly, and I always had at least a keg or some keg or two on tap. People know, friends of mine know, if they come over to my house, they're gonna get alcohol.
Yeah,
they're gonna get, but they still bring their own alcohol.
Well, last summer, I mean, I would wander out on, it was Friday night, Saturday night, I'd wander out onto the patio and sit at my table right outside right outside my front door and wait for the neighbors to appear like they always used to in the past. And, you do that 2 or 3 times, suddenly nobody's coming out anymore. Why? Because of this pandemic thing. People were just afraid to even be around each other, and this whole social distancing thing. And I get it all. I understand it, but I'm telling you, man, it really put a dent in a lot of people's social interactions with people. Big time. Now, what has this got to do with brewing? I have no idea, but it sounded good.
This is a social hobby, and the fact that the three of us spend every Tuesday evening just shooting the shit for an hour and a half talking about brewing kind of proves that.
Absolutely. It is a very social hobby. And, Ryan, up there in, Mead House North, he's like, what is that, Mead Central, I guess, up there in Minnesota. How often do people get together, Ryan, up there just for shits and giggles, just to a mead party, brew party, whatever? Did that happen before the pandemic?
Yeah, before the pandemic, absolutely. People were getting together frequently, whether it was, big, 30 people tastings, at Kevin Mensma's house or, me just, dragging Matt Whitey a couple blocks over to have a couple of glasses.
Yeah.
But it was, we absolutely, that was very, very common. Since the pandemic, it's, different people have different levels of comfort. Some people, felt they needed to be very precautionary and didn't do much or anything. And other people just kept going, didn't slow down, didn't stop. Maybe they a little more, deck oriented or patio oriented, but
right.
Didn't necessarily stop that much. So it's kind of all over the place. I would say that seen a little bit more people coming out here as the weather warms up and people just kind of naturally come want to be active this time of year. So again, just all over the place, and I really hope to see a lot more folks out and doing doing the tastings and the gatherings and things like that going forward.
Well, let me wrap this segment up with this. Changes to our practices, we're going to keep going with, or even those things that we never have to do again. Pick one, Ryan. Did the pandemic change anything about your practice of brewing, or is there anything that you discovered that you don't want to do again?
Well, a couple things. I guess I'm kind of the list guy, aren't I? I'd say there's three things. Number one was I had said, like, one of my Brewsolutions or whatever we did that a year or so ago was to kind of streamline equipment, streamline brewing, and I did a pretty good job at that. But I also got more disciplined. I really kind of. I put it this way: when you move, and Jeff, you might experience this when you move. When you move, when you're packing up, it's a great time to get rid of stuff because you're saying, oh, that kind of thing. But then your second chance to get rid of more stuff is when you unpack. And you say, I don't really know if I needed that. Yeah. So I kind of feel like, I had done that last year, right, of trying to streamline stuff, get rid of stuff. I did. But then again, I had that second chance, here again of even getting more streamlined. I did that with the equipment and with what I was brewing. I mean, the thing is, like I said, now once in a while, I'll take kind of a flyer, so to speak, kind of take an experiment, but I want to be pretty sure that it's going to be something I like. Yeah. Like the pomegranate lemonade, right? I know the lemonade, I know pomegranates, but I've never made a pomegranate lemonade, but it seemed like a safe bet. So I did it, no problem. Yeah. The other thing is, so I'm not going to say, walk down the aisle at Costco and say, oh, look, they've got a sale on dried apricots. Maybe I should buy 40 pounds of those and make a dried apricot meat. See how that turns out. Yeah. So I'm not, not doing that anymore. So again, just got more disciplined in getting, streamlining equipment and streamlining the brews I'm making. The other thing is also I say the waste not, want not. I mean, I'm trying not to have stores of ingredients, which I used to, right? From, tinctures and compounds and elixirs and all kinds of stuff. and just, just saying, either I'm going to make something with it, I'm not, or whatever. So it's either, in queue, so to speak. I gave a bunch of stuff away. I got a buddy that started getting into kombucha making. And so I said, okay, here's a bunch of flavoring stuff that'll work with kombucha. Just take it. Here it is. I'm not going to kid myself and say it's going to sit on my shelf any longer, and I might use it at some point. Yeah. Did that. And then the last thing was kind of like Jeff was saying, when he went through his bottles, I did that too. I went through all of my bottles and I threw out the ones that were really bad. And then I organized them into just brown long necks, Sam Adams bottles, New Belgium bottles. I organized all of them. But then what I do is so let's say the average, let's say 5 gallons gives you 2 cases. I might do, of the 48 bottles, I might do 40 of them in long neck, brown plain long necks. And then 8 of them in the, maybe the stub nose or the Sam Adams or the, New Belgium or something random bottle, because I figure 8 of them I'm going to give away. Yeah. I'm going to send one to you, send one to Jeff. I'm going to, give one to, my brother, give one to some people on the street. So it's kind of I've kind of got this rotation of where now it's I know I'm going to give away maybe 8 bottles. I might as well just do 8 bottles that I kind of want to rotate out anyway and work that in. And anyway, again, I'll stop rambling, but those are kind of some of the things that jumped out at me as things I've noticed.
right, Jeff. Ryan took most of your time. You got about 30 seconds to wrap it up.
Sure. Well, at the end of the day, I still have a love-hate relationship with bottling.
Yeah.
I put that shit off. But it's really nice to have a clean, organized case of bottles when I need to bottle and just go, oh, well, this is going to cut down the just amount of shit I have to do to get past and ready to do the thing I didn't want to do in the first place.
Yeah.
I'm going to hold on to that because that worked out really well. And I continue to streamline. I continue to kind of just minimize the amount of stuff that I've got that I'm not using constantly, and that's nice.
Yeah.
I wish I could say that, like Ryan, I have gone through the ingredient stuff. I've still got a ton of ingredients that I'm just kind of sitting on. That, man, I predict as soon as we get the whole move thing done, there's going to be a flurry of activity in my basement.
There you go. All right. Wrapping up segment 2. Moving on to the social club here. We're going to get to as many as we can here because remember, this is week 6. We're going 2 weeks hiatus here after this one. So let's get it right off to a good start here. Junior Vice Pres, Braggett Help. Hi, all. I'm attempting to make my first. Well, I guess technically it's a Braggett, but I'm wanting it to be a high ABV and really just wanting the flavors of the grains. I'm hoping that it'll have a smoked whiskey-ish flavor to it. Recipe I've got so far, I've already bought the grains pre-milled together, is, now here's his mash grain. 1 kilogram Manuka smoked malt, 400 grams of Aurora malt, 300 grams malted oats, 500 grams of raisins, 1 orange worth of zest, post-boil, 1.5 kilograms of Banksia honey, whatever that is. And the yeast, guys, is 5 grams of EC 1118. That's a barn burner. All up, I'm going for about 5.5 liters to go into the fermenter. My big problem is that the brew calc at Brew Firm is telling him, actually not Brew Firm, Brewer's Friend, I'm sorry about that, is telling him that his final gravity will be 1060. He thinks that's nuts. Wondering if someone can help me with what I'm doing wrong here. Am I overestimating how well 1118 will go here? Do grains actually have that much unfermentable sugars? Thanks in advance. That's a lot to encompass here, Ryan. I don't know if you're following along, if you got the show notes pulled up there. Big Time Mashville. Yep. What do you think?
So a couple of things on this is he's got the metric the metric scale in there. So it takes me a couple of minutes just to convert everything to what I think of in
ounces,
standard standard measurements. The other thing is a couple of ingredients I'm not familiar with. Like I'm not familiar. It's a Manuka smoked malt. I don't know where he's from. Maybe Australia, maybe or something. New Zealand, I don't know. But the Manuka smoked malt I'm not familiar with. I mean, I'm from the smoked malt, and like cherry smoked malt or beechwood smoked malt or things like that. And then the Banksia honey, I'm not familiar with the Banksia honey either. Okay. The only thing that I can think of would be if the 1118 might struggle through some of the maltose, and I don't know. I mean, Jeff might know better than I do, but if the 1118 can chug through maltose, I don't know why. I don't think it couldn't. You're going to get a lot lower than that. I mean, it's gonna it can get you to. I mean, so that's been pushed to 18-20%, no problem. So I think it can handle that as long as you've got enough mineral sugar in there, which I think you've got quite a bit. So that's my only thought. I think, again, it's we just had the guy talking about high gravity Reggaeton tonight, so it's a good episode for the question. Jeff, what do you think?
Jeff? Take your mic.
Man, it really helps if I turn the microphone off before I go off on a tangent. No, like Brian, I've been doing the math in my head here and kind of trying to figure, what pounds versus kilos and stuff like that. And man, even if he's doing a single gallon with this stuff, I don't think he's really overshooting it to where he's going to have 1060 as a final gravity. There's probably, something off with the math. And I'm not familiar with whether or not EC1118 is more of a fructose versus maltose kind of a preferential yeast. I would assume it's fructose preferential just because it's a wine yeast, but I don't know. Not firmly. My guess is there's something iffy with that calculator, and the EC1118 is going to outperform that unless, your starting gravity is something ridiculous like 1180. There's no reason to have a final gravity at 1060. He doesn't mention what the calculator says his starting gravity is going to be. But
well, man, he's got. Here's the thing. I'm struggling with this too. Now I have gone to the calculator, and 1.5 kilograms is roughly 2.2 pounds.
Right.
So he's talking 2.2 pounds of Banksia honey, whatever that is. But he's also talking about a 5.5 liter batch,
which is about a gallon and a quarter ish, if I'm not mistaken.
So
roughly.
He's
it doesn't seem like it's too much.
No,
there's probably about 4 pounds of grain.
And that's not going to give him that much. Something's wrong with the math here somewhere.
Right. I think the calculator is probably assuming he's got something more like an ale yeast that's going to eat off about 10% and then quit, versus we know EC1118, that'll chew 140 points off of whatever your starting gravity is.
It's a barn burner. I mean, so I would say, instead of using I love the Brewer's Friend, don't get me wrong. Go to, I think the one over at Got Meat is still there. You might try the one over at, now, obviously it's not going to tell you, the particular yeast to use, but you need to know the tolerance of the yeast is all, basically. So it's a 14% yeast. Doesn't matter what yeast you use. It's just, you plug that number in. But the one over at Mead Makers, and I think we have the link up on our webpage, but I'll check for sure. But so there's something wrong with the math here somewhere. But
right, yeah, somewhere that formula is just off.
Yeah. Okay. So the young old chemically mead, he's asking. My mead has a chemically plastic smell to it when it's done fermenting. I've been using Premier Blanc yeast. I guess you call that Blanc, right? French.
Premier Blanc.
Premier Blanc. This last batch was 5 gallons, spring water, 15 pounds of honey, small packet of tannins, Go Firm for a 5-gallon bucket, 4 pounds frozen strawberries, 2 ounces bourbon vanilla extract, 2 cinnamon sticks, 2 packs of Premier Blanc yeast. Outgoing gravity 1109. Checked today, and it's like 1030. Added 4 grams. Already at Fermaid K. Added 4 grams Fermaid K, and it started fermenting like crazy again. Well, yeah. When I took a small sample, it tasted great, but it had a very noticeable air to it that also could be tasted. I'm not quite sure what he means by air. Not sure if it's just from the yeast or if it's something else. It was like ethanolic or something else. From 1109 all the way down to 1030, and then he adds 4 grams of Fermaid K.
Okay. Yeah, and with the yeast choice there, he may still be fermenting. on that. My question is this the first time you're adding nutrient? Because that kind of explains the chemically flavor.
Yeah.
I've been told that there are a number of times you get a kind of a stressed ferment flavor that is reminiscent of the smell of a Band-Aid. You get that kind of a plasticky smell from yeast that is stressed out and under nutrient. And if you're fermenting this far along before you're adding your nutrient, that kind of makes sense. The yeast just didn't have enough nutrient to do its thing, and so it was eating up the autolyzed yeast at the bottom of your fermenter, kind of cannibalizing itself and throwing some weird funky stuff.
Yeah.
He also talks about some ethanolic smells, which that points me towards fusels, like heavy alcohols that are the harsh stuff, the cheap vodka, cheap whiskey kind of rock gut flavors you get. Those are the
hooch.
Heavy alcohols.
Didn't they call it hooch? Prison hooch. Right. Oh God, yeah.
No, that's kind of classic of the stress fermentation, where the yeast is doing what it can and it produces those heavy alcohols that it doesn't take very many of those to be perceptual, and they are hot. You will get that alcohol burn from them because they burn.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just looking at the numbers, the 1109 down to 1030, then he adds the 4 grams of formic. To me, that's a little late in the game.
Yep.
I mean, at some point you got to stop adding, and let the yeast do its thing. I mean, there comes a point in time when you kind of want the yeast to die out and not, keep eating away at itself.
Right.
I mean, that's the whole idea here. And I think
it sounds like these.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, it sounds like these are kind of beginner mistakes.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to bet maybe fermentation temperatures got a little hot, waited a little too long to put nutrient on it, and these are kind of things you make that mistake once or twice, and you live and learn.
Yeah. All right, Tim Scream 1, Ryan, nutrients for a session melomel. Hi, I've been brewing mead for the last 2 years. Usually I make mead so strong that you risk alcohol poisoning if you have more than one glass. Okay, it's an exaggeration. Okay. So for this case, staggered nutrient addition is the way to go, and I have never had a single issue. Now, with the summer right around the corner, I wanted to make something lighter and sparkling. I went for the Raspberry Blueberry Session Melomel, proposed by Doing the Most, as a tribute to the game Valheim. I have no idea what that means. Since I have an SG of 1050, the thing is most likely done. This thing is most likely done fermenting in 3 days, given the right conditions. Maybe. I rehydrated my yeast in G-Firm. I think that's Go Firm. And 1 hour after pitching, it started to bubble. Yeah, that's nothing new. Do you think I need to add more nutrients, or that bit of nutrients plus the fruit will do the job? Ryan?
So I love my session meads, and it's an absolutely perfect time to make them. The way I do it, and the way that I found is the best, is all your nutrients up front. So you rehydrated and Go Firm, excellent. If you're doing any calculations and you want to put in, a little Fermato or Fermate K or DAP or yeast energizer or yeast nutrient or Y yeast, wine yeast nutrient, whatever, all the different stuff in there that for the calculations, go ahead. Just put it all up front and let it rip. And it probably will be done in 3 days fermenting.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't need to mess with anything staggered on something that's really, really low gravity like that. But I do. I mean, depending on what you're doing here, I still put in a little bit of nutrient. Now, again, not, you don't need as much as if you're starting at like, 1100 or something, versus starting at your 1050. But so a little bit, it can help, and again, olive front, it'll be fine.
Yeah. Good deal. We're going to wrap this up, guys, with the last one. This comes from Amateur Ruckhumper. I love these guys' names. Jeff, this is that Reddit thing, right?
Yeah.
You follow quite a bit. I love these guys' names. Amateur Ruckhumper. Whatever
and there's
that
so many
is.
good questions on here. You know?
Now this has got me perplexed. Okay, I want to make a. What the hell is a tire wine?
I don't know.
Okay, so I you know what? Okay, so I'm just going to read this. All right. So here goes. I want to make a drinkable tire wine. The pure molasses mead is well known to be disgusting and undrinkable, but I want to get that raw earthiness without going to. This might be a Ryan question. I don't know. But I want to get that raw earthiness without going too far. My current thought is to use 3. And where in the hell do you come up with these things, Jeff? I mean, tire wine.
I troll the Reddit meat subforum, man.
Okay, continuing on. My current thought is use 3/4 pounds of. That's a lot of molasses, too, dude. 3/4 of a pound of molasses, 2.5 pounds of honey, pitch 71B, and throw some vanilla beans in there from extra smoothness. Vanilla should be of a mellowing note to offset the molasses. And I don't know, with 3/4 of a pound, that's a lot of molasses, dude. Anyway, so hey, you get the gist, Ryan. I mean, you're reading along the notes here. What do you think? Tire wine? You ever heard of tire wine?
I don't know anything about tire wine.
You know what? I'm going to Google it right now. I'm on the freaking web right now, and I'm going to Google freaking tire wine, dude. Tire
wine. Now, I do know of molasses beers. I think, that was like a colonial style. It was like, taking the molasses and making a beer out of it. So, I am familiar with that. I don't think that's, that much molasses. I mean, he's got 3/4 pound molasses and 2.5 pounds of honey. I don't think he's that fine. I think the vanilla beans are in there. Yeah, I think he's going to be fine. He might want to back sweeten a little bit, just to make it a little less, a little less sharp maybe. But this sounds just fine to me.
Google doesn't even know what the hell tire wine is.
Damn. We got Google stumped tonight?
Nah, it comes up with what does it mean if a wine smells like tar or burned rubber? Oh my God. Tire wine?
I'm not familiar with his reference as far as molasses making a really nasty kind of hooch here, but I get what we're going for as far as getting an earthy flavor. And man, if you want to dial up the earthiness, there are a few ways that I would go for it. For one, let's bochet that honey. Get some caramelization in there. You kind of dial up some of that earthiness, or else avocado honey, buckwheat honey. You get a little bit more earthiness that way. If you go more like earthy varietal root, you could also try hopping it. Especially some of the English hops like Fuggles have very earthy notes to them that might be nice. So, yeah, I don't understand the problem that the question is being predicated on, but I kind of like the direction that it's going as far as wanting earthy flavors involved in a mead with some molassesy flavors. And honestly, I might save some of that molasses for back sweetening too.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just, I don't know. I know I've used molasses before, and a little bit of that stuff kind of goes a long way, especially when you're even making beer.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's just
so,
like,
3/4 of a pound of molasses. Oh, man, that's a ton of molasses. That's a lot of molasses. And if you've ever tasted molasses, it's got a very, very unique flavor to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it can easily overpower anything that you're doing, even in cooking. So I'm
my wife will make a big pot of baked beans with bacon and all kinds of stuff, and geez, a quarter cup will feed. That's a portion to feed the entire spread for a big backyard barbecue. So that's a lot of molasses.
Yeah, so I don't know, guys. I'm still Googling. Google just doesn't even know what the hell tire wine is. Oh my God, we've run out of time. In fact, go ahead.
It's our last one. Can we go over? We got one more question.
Okay, go ahead.
This is from Brandon.
Okay.
Not quite as fun as some of the other names. Hey, I'm just starting to get into mead making, and I have a small oak aging barrel. Will mead age well in a barrel? If so, what would age best? It doesn't seem like something like a mellow mill would benefit from it, but I don't know. Thanks. So this is, new guy, but he's asking about his oak barrel. He's got a small one, and he wants to know how it'll work and what he should put in it.
It'll happen really quick. I mean, you can age anything in a barrel. Let's give it that. Just depends on what kind of flavor you're looking for out of that barrel. Now, it also depends on the used barrel, new barrel, but a small barrel, it's going to happen really, really fast. How small? Even a 5-gallon barrel, you're talking weeks to just a couple of months. Don't kid yourself that, you read about these whiskeys that are aged in barrels for 12 years. Okay. We're talking 53-gallon barrels at this point. I mean, they're big barrels. Okay. When it comes to like 5-gallon barrels, I mean, it's going to happen in relatively months, if that. Yeah. So,
no, and if you're talking about one of those like little 2 or 3 liter like novelty barrel things, oh my gosh, you're talking
even
days.
Sooner. Oh yeah. I've got one of those. I've got I think it's a 1.5 liter little oak barrel that I bought for my wife. We put some tequila in it. We turned a Blanco tequila into roughly an añejo tequila in like 6 weeks. So that's as quick as it went. And we had to get it into the bottle because the longer you leave it sit in the bottle, remember the angel's share, disappears. And what you're left with is alcohol, because alcohol doesn't go anywhere. The water does. And so, my experience with the barrels, stick with the barrel staves, the cubes, the chips, the whatever. We've highlighted a bunch of them here on the show. This is my own personal opinion. Now, I would not do the barrel again. I've done it a couple of times. I would not do it again. That's my take. Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, I think first of all, I think any beer or any beer, any mead, any of that stuff can go well with oak aging. Mellow absolutely mellow can go with that. So it is going to be fine, no problem at all. I would also say, it sounds like he has a barrel, Brandon. You have a barrel, but if you didn't have a barrel, I mean, you can use all the oak alternatives, so spirals, honeycombs, staves, chips, cubes, balls, whatever, and be fine with all that stuff. So yeah, and then taste,
Yeah.
just like JD said, and I think you're gonna be just fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So lastly, I want to jump over to one thing, Jeff. Unless you had something else to say on that, I got one thing to end us with.
I was going to just buttress your comment. Yeah, there are very few meads that I would say don't benefit from a little bit of oak. I think for my 2 cents. Whether or not to oak is a question of how long and not if. I mean, a light session mead, maybe just a little bit to get more body versus something really heavy. It could definitely deal with a longer term oak. But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Very good. Ryan, wrap it up.
I was just going to say I found a colonial molasses beer recipe. That's when I think of molasses beer, I think of the colonial recipe. And it says that let's see here, a couple of pounds. It was a couple of pounds of molasses per 5-gallon bat.
Couple of pounds.
That stuff was dark. It was, let's see here. There's 128, so that's
couple of pounds. Wow.
Yeah. It was
not just 3/4 pound in a 1-gallon batch, though, too.
That would be heavy.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Hey, don't forget, we're going to be on hiatus for a couple of weeks. But, hey, thanks for hanging out with us in this one. And a big thank you to Michael Jordan for coming on back. Dude, it's been like 100 years, man. Episode 74. I'll put the link up in the show notes. But thanks for spending some time with us here at the house. And, hey, fun of our mead-making listeners out there, bragging brewers and whatnot. Hey, if you want to get on the show, it's real easy. All you got to do is just let us know what you're brewing. You can email us, info@themeadhouse.com. I'll say that twice, info@themeadhouse.com, or just send us a message on that Facebook deal. I think Ryan and Jeff are in charge of that thing, or the Twitter thing. I don't do neither one of the Facebook, Twitter things anymore, but both of those are at the Mead House. I'm sure somebody will get to it. But hey, we'll set up a date and talk to you about it and get you on the show. So in the meantime, happy mead making. That's it for this episode. Ryan, put the lights off. Jeff, slam the door shut. Hey, don't forget, we're off for a couple of weeks. We'll be back in 2 weeks with episode number 100. This is like 198, right? 199. We will be on episode 199. I believe that'll occur on May 25th, if I'm not mistaken. In lieu of that, hey, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. No.